Hello and welcome to the Missionary Position podcast. This is episode 1 of my new and upcoming podcast, a podcast to give you a window into my world as a missionary in the Philippines. We've been here for 15 years, me, my husband, and we have 5 children. We love life here in the Philippines, but sometimes when you read the newsletters or you see the pictures online, you don't get the full understanding of what it's really like as a missionary on the ground. This podcast is to let you see what it's really like and give you an understanding in more detail. Maybe you want to visit, or maybe you also want to become a missionary. This is my way of including you in my life and the things I've experienced for you to really have an understanding of missionary life in the Philippines. Before I go on, I'm going to talk about the name of the podcast, the Missionary Position podcast. I've already received some scrutiny about the name, but the reason I called it this is a kind of a clickbait reason. The audience I'm looking for is not like Mum's Missionary Blog audience. I'm really looking for people who are willing to risk it all, faith and adventure for living for Jesus, and people that's kind of on the edge, because true missionary life is very raw and real, and the reality is complete adventure and facing emergencies every day. So the truth of having a missionary heart is being positioned in a way of submission to God, and always going back to positioning your heart back to the Lord and sacrificing yourself to be before Him. So this whole podcast is about positioning yourself as a missionary. Okay, so how did I get here? Well, when I was a young girl, I used to read all the books about being a missionary. I was inspired by people like Hudson Taylor, Amy Carmichael, C.T. Studd, and my parents really encouraged me to read lots of books about missionary lives. And I used to read them and think, I want to be that, I want to do that. Then when I was a teenager, I was in a wonderful church that's called Tees Valley Community Church right now, but before it was Emmanuel Fellowship. And they had so many guest speakers who were missionaries around the world. One of them was George Verwer, the founder of OM. And I remember one time he did an offering and asked people to give to their mission cause. And I was just young and I had no money. And so I thought, Lord, I want to give, but I've got nothing. And what I did have was a ring on my finger. So I said to God, Lord, I'm going to give you this ring as a sign that I want to put my whole life in this offering, that I will give my life to serve you as a missionary. I want to be part of this ministry. I want to be part of serving you. And I remember that moment, putting that ring in that offering and never looking back and thinking, this is what I want to be. It got me in a lot of trouble in high school because I used to get called back repeatedly to the careers office to be asked, are you sure you want to be a missionary? It seems like such a waste of talent. What about your education? Why do you want to do this? Maybe you should delay this plan. And I constantly would tell them, no, I want to be a missionary. I need to do this. This is what I've planned to do. That's what my purpose is. And they could not understand me. When I got to the age of 14, I went on my first mission trip experience to Kazakhstan. Again, this was with Tees Valley Community Church, and my mind was amazed and open to all the things of missionary life, just in the short 2 weeks. The family that lived there were British missionaries, and I was totally inspired by their lives, especially the wife. She was so humble, she didn't draw any attention to herself, and she was so willing to defend the culture of the Kazakh people, explaining about their language, their history, their food, and making sure that we as the mission team totally adapted to the culture of the Kazakh people for the duration of our stay. Since then, that's a long time ago. I'm now in my 30s. But every day I think about that missionary lady and think, that's who I want to be like. That's who is my inspiration on the mission field. To be a humble woman who's willing to open up missions to other people, let them experience missionary life, but also totally defend the culture that you're living in as a missionary. And for me, that's the Filipino culture. Shout out to Alivers. That's our ministry here in the Philippines. I said we've been here for almost 15 years, and we have amazing church family of Alivers, community of Alive Back Norton Church, and different churches across the Philippines. We also run now a missionary training center where we're training up missionaries ourselves to go out and take the gospel. We have one guy called Rocco who's already on mission right now in the Doulos Hope with OM. That missionary organization that George Verwer founded, we now send people and support them there. So that is amazing heritage of what's gone on in my life. I am so blessed. But what's in it for you? How can you gain from this experience? Well, this podcast will go deeply into the Filipino culture, into life as a British missionary on the mission field, and really give you a deeper understanding of what's going on. But why does this matter? Why should we leave the comfort of home and safety of our own culture and go somewhere else to take the gospel? Lots of people believe that other countries are already reached. In fact, one time when we moved here, I met a lovely old couple who'd been here for many years, but they were getting called back to America because their mission organization deemed the Philippines as a reached nation. And yes, it is true, there is many Filipinos that is saved for Christ, but being saved is not enough. We've got a calling to take the gospel to the unreached people. And so as a missionary myself, my aim here is to raise up other missionaries to go out into all the world. So it's not just about saving people. It's about actually empowering Filipinos to go out further than just staying in the church and knowing they're going to heaven. It's important that they have a purpose in God's kingdom. That's really important. The truth about our work here is it never stops. Our vision for our ministry is Genesis 50:20, which says, "What you meant for evil, God turned around for good to save a great many people alive." And that's what our purpose is. Whatever happens to us, hardship, suffering on the mission field, God will use it for good to save many people alive. It's important that we find the balance of what we feel we're called to do and actually submitting to the will of God in our lives and being open and adjusting ourselves to do what He's calling us to do. Usually requires serious humility and a lot of pain. But if we're willing to do that, you can really grow with God and learn so much about the world and the people around you. The reality of missionary life, I won't sugarcoat it. It is hard work. It's a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, but when you know you're doing what God's called you to do, there's nothing that you can't do for His kingdom when He's with you. I want to encourage you to listen to this podcast and learn all about the Filipino people, their culture, and what it's like to be a British missionary in the Philippines. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening. Remember, God's mission is for everyone everywhere, but not everyone has a heart in the missionary position.